There has been a ton of hoopla and funding put towards planting tons of trees recently as a means of sequestering and storing carbon to help mitigate the impacts of man-made climate change. But is it really all that effective? Now, don't get me wrong, I am all for having more trees and forest lands, especially since it's been proven time and time again that older, mature, diverse, and healthy forest ecosystems sequester and store much more carbon than young plantation forests do, while providing all sorts of ecological functions that we need to survive, such as cleaning water and air, reducing erosion, landslides, and sedimentation of freshwater ecosystems, and reducing risk to wildfire, drought, and disease spread. But the best way to achieve all of that is by protecting intact forest ecosystems and rehabilitating those that have been damaged by human activity in the past, not by cutting down forests and planting new young trees. Additionally, research has shown that many of the trees planted in the past few years as part of these carbon sequestration schemes not only don't survive the maturity and thus are unable to actually store any meaningful amounts of carbon, but many are planted in regions where forest hasn't existed naturally in tens of thousands of years. And this sort of defeats the purpose entirely. See, every type of ecosystem that exists naturally in every niche on this planet has its own cycles and methods that result in carbon sequestration that in some cases outnumber the amount of carbon stored in nearby forests. For example, native grasslands are able to build up soil over hundreds of years that contain rich stores of carbon that often far outnumber carbon levels in forest soils, and many peat and wetland areas do a similar thing as plants and trees die and fall into anoxic waters where decomposition is slowed and that carbon is stored for hundreds, even thousands of years. So planting trees in grassland, wetland, tundra, estuary, or other areas where forests haven't existed naturally in recent history can create more problems while interfering with the natural processes of carbon storage in those ecosystems. So instead of focusing purely on planting trees for the sake of planting trees and replacing ecosystem types in the process, we should be focusing our efforts on restoring the native diversity and ecological function of every single type of ecosystem across this planet, from not only forests, but grasslands, prairies, tundra, wetlands, and everything in between. The more healthy and diverse of a landscape we can create across our bioregion, the continent, and our world, then the more all the species that live amongst them are able to sequester and store carbon to mitigate the impacts of climate change while adapting to the impending changes that are coming our way to create a more diverse, abundant, and better future for all of us.